So happy to be with all of you. I am Dr. Antoinette Taylor. What you see in front of you is just a little bit of information about me. We are just coming out of the lame duck session. I tell you all, um, it has been quite a ride for the winter break for a lot of us that are involved with legislative issues. With the exception of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, a lot of work was going on trying to get legislation ready either for lame duck, which just ended on yesterday, and legislation that wasn't able to make it through lame duck, how it will move forward when the 102nd General Assembly begins, which actually was today at noon. So it's been a busy time for all of us. I am certain glad to have you here with me today. I am grateful that this is sponsored by Early Childhood for Professional Learning and Illinois State Board of Education. We are here today to talk about how to keep the students that we do have coming, and just to think about this whole framework of what this looks like in this life that we're living in COVID-19. Thank you so much, Kimberly. I appreciate that. It's certainly needed. A little bit of housekeeping. We are going to go straight through it, and that was our plan anyway, for this time together. So the self-care is that if you need to get up, stretch your legs, go get some tea, hot chocolate, get a drink of water, please feel free to do that. We are going to go straight through, give you a little bit of your time back at the end rather than in the middle. We are practicing grammar, Grace, and for anyone that's been with me on any webinar that we've been doing since this time began, just give yourself really not only grammar grace, but just grace in and of itself. So when we jump in the chat, don't worry about crossing your T's and dotting your I's. Are your periods and commas in place? Just get that information in there. This is quote unquote a safe grammar grace place. I do want to just say first things first, and this is so important in this moment that we are in. Nothing that is going to be said tonight is meant to impede or superimpose anything that you see in front of you today. That includes the 4 federal laws. The Department of Education since March has been very, very clear in letting state education agencies, local education agencies, consultants such as myself know that the federal law of the land is exactly that. And whatever we're doing in response to COVID-19 or civil unrest, it must all be undergirded by the law that you see in front of you. Every Student Succeeds Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 504, the Rehabilitation Act, the Individuals with Disability Education Act. In addition to that, we know the State Board of Education has been giving guidelines that are ongoing and updated often, as well as the governor's office has given us executive orders. Now, we do know that the last executive order concluded on January 9th, but as we look at the numbers in our state today, the numbers of COVID, where the vaccine is being given and is not, we can expect that more possible, I should say, executive orders from the governor's office may come. Should that happen, again, COVID-19 is the guidelines, COVID-19 executive orders from the governor's office. They are the go-to for everything. And then last but not least, we are back in our schools. And for the 21-21 school year, as district directors, superintendents, your collective bargaining unit, if you are in a early childhood education and care community-based program, whatever your director is given to you, that's always the first go-to to whatever information you are receiving, really anywhere, but especially from what is coming to you today on this webinar. So let's do a quick roll call so we can see who we have with us today. A little slide is going to come over, and if you can just tell me your current role. Are you an administrator, consultant, teacher? And we did put that on purpose, pre-KK other. There's been a lot of the professional learning opportunities we've been doing over this school year where we've had kindergarten, first grade. A lot of districts have moved to having an EC coordinator. So it's not necessarily pre-K. So that is not a mistake. If you're a family specialist, family engagement specialist, parent, guardian, and of course, other. If you are other, put that in the chat so that we know. Thank you, Sarah. I do see that. Thank you for that question. And I'm noting it. Thank you, Sarah. And actually, Sarah just kind of reminded me that, wow, Crystal, bus attendant, early Head Start, Sarah, parent coordinator. Very, very nice. This is a wide breadth of colleagues that we have with us today. Bilingual family school liaison. Hi, Teresa. I'm just trying to kind of reading these as they go along. Sarah, we will try to find that information out for you and then get back to you. 9 times out of 10, the answer for that is going to come through the training for what to do if a civil unrest alarm goes off. That probably is similar to what is happening if any other type of alarm goes off, such as an intruder in the building. That really is a district or a program directed process. So I would make sure to check in with those folks. Preschool expansion secretary, woohoo! Love all these people on, and welcome to all of you all. So if I ask your role, I have to ask the type of program that you are in: PFA, PFAE, Head Start, and I'm just so excited to see EHS. A lot of what we have been doing since the pandemic, really before that, but even more so after the pandemic hit, we are all collegial. And so Head Start, community-based programs, Preschool for All, a lot of community-based programs have a part of their day that is preschool for all. So we're collegial, and we really want to make sure that as many people as possible within the early childhood education and care community have access to information. I see some prevention initiative folks on here too, so that is wonderful. Whoop, whoop, social worker. Got to give it up to our related services personnel. Jenna, you are wearing some hats there, my dear. DCFS, University of Illinois, Chicago. And hey, Erickson, you have Christina Pacione-Zayas is my very good friend from Erickson. She is now Senator Pacione-Zayas. So welcome to you, Jenna, and welcome to everybody. Thanks so much for sharing. Looks like we don't have that many people that put in community-based, but I do see that here on the chat. So welcome to all. I did not create a slide for this, but I thought about it after I had submitted it to ECPL. If you would go ahead in the chat and just let me know what remote learning model is your district or program implementing. So that could mean you're hybrid. You're doing some face-to-face and some virtual. You could be all virtual. You could be doing, the guideline is that remote learning must take place. But both ISB and the governor has said how districts and programs do that. It is up to that district. Okay, so we've got hybrid starting next week. Yeah, a lot of people are doing that. Katie, all distance and hybrid, full virtual. Brooke, Shalia, virtual. Remote circle time via Zoom. Okay, so we have just as many colleagues as we have on with us today. We have that many types of learning being implemented. So this is going to be as differentiated as possible. This is really created thinking about best practices, our time together today. And as you go through it, you'll be thinking about how to take best practices for any situation and generalize them to the one that you are in now. Wow, Anna, in person all day. Okay, so, and let me just say, I tip my hat to every single one of you who have joined me today. Nothing about this is easy. Nothing about it was easy in March 2020. Nothing about it is easy in January 2021. Professionally or personally, nothing about this is easy. So I thank you for going through a whole day and then coming on at 4 o'clock to join me for this very, very important conversation. My hat's off to each and every one of you. So having said that, just go ahead and quickly share what it is that you hope to learn while you're joining the conversation today. I will let you know that I do get the transcripts from all of these. And so if there's any questions that are not answered as we go through our the professional learning opportunity today, if we even need to create a resource page and get back to you, we will definitely do that. So go ahead and put them in the chat. Watch the chat. Jeanette Cross is saying, I'm looking for new ideas. Absolutely. This time has just made us all feel a little bit out of sorts. And so we're trying to get our equilibrium back for sure. So looking for new ideas, wanting to be encouraged, ideas for support to families, to proceed with school service, hoping to get some a lot of people are saying, I just want to get some good ideas and how to better support families. Yeah, Brooke, we are having, a lot of families are having some attendance concerns. And I just want to say up front with that one, in March, as a consultant, I was hearing so many people say, our kids are not showing up. This just further validates the fact that they think that we're babysitters. They don't believe that preschool and early childhood education is important. And just like we talked about grammar grace, let's think about family grace. Families have been dealing with a whole lot. And sometimes in doing that, they are compartmentalizing. So did someone lose a job? Is someone in the family sick from COVID, something else that they may have been sick from? You have families that have people in care facilities that they haven't been able to get to, families that have children who were graduating high school, and sometimes in compartmentalizing what they are able to have the capacity to look at what's right in front of them. Maybe pre-K was not a priority, but that does not mean that our work is not validated, what you're doing is not validated. It literally means that for survival's sake, many families compartmentalized and had to make decisions about how they would move forward, not even on a day-to-day basis, but sometimes on a moment-to-moment basis. So just wanted to put that out there as we think about family support. Showing our families grace as well is going to be so important. And then I would be remiss if I just didn't ask us, with all these still COVID-19 stages and remote learning, and yes, I did put elections there because we had one election in November, but even as we look at January 2021 and the runoffs and everything else that's happened, it almost feels like this has been, I'd like to say, the never-ending story of elections. So with that, as Joey would say, how you doing? Now this is, or as Wendy would say, how you doing? This is a multiple choice question. So I want you to hold off until you see all of the choices. Are you A, B, C, D, E, or F? All of the above. Go ahead and put that in the chat. Yes. And if I, Dr. Taylor, were joining in the chat, I'd be saying F as well. And sometimes you're all of those all at the same time. Or you wake up in the morning and you're like, I got this, I got this. And then that email comes from the district or from your program director, or you get the phone call, that unexpected or unwanted phone call. So you go from, I got this, to, oh my gosh, I can't take this anymore. And then I love that last one where it's like, you know what? I just give up. I'm just going to give in. I'm crying uncle, and I'm just feeling all the way loopy. We are in this together. We are going to continue to lock arms virtually. We certainly can't do it, physically, but we'll continue. Yes, Teresa. Yes, I'm A, B, C, D, E, F, and Z. All of the above and none of the above. And my laughter that I'm giving you tonight, again, I place myself in these same categories. Just hope to lift the mood just a little bit. But I hope that you can see from these responses, if you were feeling alone, look at your colleagues. We're, as much as we possibly can be in this together by supporting each other, we're going to continue to do that. Thank you all for being candid and thank you for sharing. So what is the local landscape when it comes to attendance and really enrollment? In July, well, actually, I'm just going to show you that we do have a chronic absence law in place in our state that focuses on pre-K. So we have a K-12 chronic absence law and we have a pre-K chronic absence law. The first, for pre-K and kindergarten up, chronic absence is defined as 10% or more of school days. And that includes in school, excused, unexcused, and suspension. Now remember I said the law of the land is still the law of the land? This law is law in our state and did not change due to COVID-19. So I first of all want to ask you just a quick poll, and look, what you're looking at is specific to, and it's called the Pre-K Chronic Absence Bill. Quick poll. Do you know and can you articulate the compulsory age of attendance in the state of Illinois? So that's a quick poll. Do you know and can you articulate the compulsory age of attendance in Illinois? So this, what you all are seeing right here, is the reason for this professional learning opportunity today. And for the laws that you see, 74% of us still, if we knew it, we couldn't articulate it. And about 77% of us are saying, I don't know it and I couldn't articulate it. So in other words, I don't even know enough to know that I don't know. Next quick poll. Before I just showed that to you, did you even know that Illinois had a law about chronic absence in pre-K? Yes or no? And if that is the Karen McCarthy from ISB, you're not allowed to answer because I know that you know and you've been a great partner in sharing updates from ISB's end on that. So Karen McCarthy, you can't answer. Okay, 68, looks like it's 68-ish% of us weren't even aware that Illinois had a pre-K chronic absence law. So I'm just going to show it to you real quick. And here it is. That's a lot of words on your screen, but this is literally what's written in the law. The early years are extremely important. Missed learning opportunities in the early years makes it difficult for children to be kindergarten ready. Those of us that are familiar with kids, we know that we want to do everything we can in early childhood education and care so that when we transition our children forward to kindergarten, they enter ready to learn. The law also says it's crucial that chronic absence is regularly understood and studied, and therefore, here is the law. It went into effect July 1, 2019. Any publicly funded early childhood program, any publicly funded, whether it is Head Start and you have a Head Start program and then your AM or your PM is PFA, that's publicly funded. If you're a district program, publicly funded. If you're a parochial program and part of your parochial day is funded by ISB through the PFA or PFAE grant, that's considered publicly funded. So this law began in July 1, 2019, and it goes hand in hand with the law for chronic absenteeism, K-UP, that was effective July 1, 2018. But now, in response to COVID, here is what happened. Oh, I'm sorry, let me just go back and show you this real quick. These are the parts of the law that I would say best practice we could think about now. And you see that number 2 is about providing resources to family, such as those available through the Illinois State Board of Education's Family Engagement Framework. And that family engagement framework, you can go into any search engine and just type in, you can either type in www.isbe.net, and I'll put that in the chat. And then when you get on the home page, put in family engagement, or you can go to any search engine and type in Illinois Family School Success. Thank you, Susie. il-fss.org. And it'll take you directly to the frameworks that are within the State Board of Education around family engagement. And I just was in a meeting 2 days ago. It is constantly being updated based off of where we are now and resources that families need. In response to COVID-19, our state in this past spring passed what is called the Illinois Omnibus Education Act, PA 101-0643. Now, the law itself is about 700 pages long, so if you haven't read it, you know you've got good, like if you ever need an excuse, did you read that law? I did not. It was 700 pages long. Leave me alone. But for people like me involved in legislation, we poured through it and we combed through it, and we found that there is portions of the bill that speak to student attendance, even in the early years, and this is what it said. You are looking at now the emergency rules for remote learning. And remember, under the governor's order, remote learning is the language that we're using in Illinois because it is believed to umbrella all of the types of learning that could take place during this time. Face-to-face, virtual, hybrid. Some rural areas were using pickup packages, meeting people at churches and at food pantries, giving them packets. Remote learning literally encompassed it all. So you all see this here? What can be declared as a day of learning or a day of attendance? And then this is the second part. So that went into effect this summer, and it was signed into law by the governor July 1. That's the law of our land in Illinois. Your district is determining how you will take attendance for children, including pre-K publicly funded programs. The state allows for the district to determine what attendance is and what attendance is not. The law only says it has to be counted, but there was leeway for how districts are doing that because each district has to determine their own constituency. So now I want to try to get back to where we are empowered. Briefly share in the chat some of your enrollment practices before COVID-19. And then I also want you to share why you had those practices in place. So this is for anyone, unless you are literally new teaching this year. And even if you are, you can kind of imagine what you might have learned in your pre-service, higher ed years. But what were some of the things that you did pre-COVID-19 as far as enrollment practices? So you see two boxes in front of you, and just go ahead and start typing, and I'll start reading them out. And this is anonymous, so whatever your answers are, it will not be attached to your name. I'll just put it like that. Gave enrollment packets to families at screening. Yes, that's a huge one because we're screening them and sometimes we lose them after we screen them. So you're giving that enrollment information out right away. Going door to door, some folks were saying, in person, attending community events to share program information. Your screening teams. Look at that. Attendance is taken every day, about an hour into the school day. We did it because we didn't want to lose families. Absolutely. Oh, I really like that one. Look at that. This is the only way we could find families. Also community events. Now, as we're talking about community events, and I kind of built this so that there's slides, but I really wanted us to have more time to kind of talk. When you think of community events, faith-based, many faith-based organizations, although they could not meet in person, moved to online practices. So when we're thinking about outreach to families, and this is not a religious statement, it's about outreach. Reaching out to those churches that are in your area, those faith-based organizations, and saying to them, especially now, hey, if you're going to be doing any type of services online or virtual, Facebook or Instagram, can you just share this announcement? And it could literally be an announcement about, we are a preschool or we are a Head Start program and we're in your area. We just want to make sure that all of the families know that school is starting on this day, or they can come. We're giving out meals. We're giving out supplies. They can get help in the school or at the school on these particular days. Partnering with our community-based programs, huge. Laundromats were considered essential. They did not close down. So what about, Lakeisha, you can make flyers to pass out. It's simply going to them and saying, can you make this announcement about schools in your area? And the feedback that we've been getting is that a lot of faith-based programs were very happy to be able to do that because they had that online platform and reaching sometimes broader audiences than we were. So my point in asking this is that when these kind of times happen, we are all thrown off of, we're kind of in a state of disequilibrium. And when that happens, sometimes if we're not careful, we begin to grasp at straws. Well, this time is something I've never lived through before, so I don't know how to navigate it. What you want to do is try to allow yourself to decompress from the moment of ambiguity, and we don't know what's happening. The district said one thing, and then our collective bargaining unit said something else, and now they said we have to wait and see what the governor's going to say. If you can decompress and disconnect from that just enough to allow yourself to say, but what were my standard of practices? What did I normally do? I see people that said, we put up banners, we gave enrollment packets to families during screening. Let that be your baseline, what you did before pandemic or panic, whatever you want to say, because that was very stable ground. Then you begin to say, what can we take that we were doing that was best practice before and generalize it to this moment now. So maybe we can't go door to door. Can we partner? Can we go perhaps laundromat to laundromat? Can we perhaps engage with food pantries? And we've all, God forbid, and unfortunately seen on the news the lines of people that were trying to go to food pantries. Can we partner with a food pantry and just say, hey, would you be willing to staple this on some of the bags that you're giving out to let the families know our community, our Miss Dr. Taylor's Head Start University is open and we're going to be there on these days, or we're not going to be open physically, but here's how they can connect with us virtually. We want to think of the best practices that we had and how we can generalize them in this moment that we're in. This way we don't, number one, it empowers us so that we don't feel like I literally don't know where to turn. I can't be in my building. Or if I am in my building, I'm isolated from my peers. We have to go straight in our rooms and stay. I mean, just all of the things that kind of make us feel like the way we want to teach is not available to us. So those are just some of the things that we can think about as our code of practice in this moment. And then for those of you that shared what you did pre-COVID, how was it successful? What did you see as a return on your investment for some of those things that you did to reach out to families for enrollment, to reach out to engage families, to reach out and stay connected to them? Lakeisha, I love your director. Are you, Lakeisha, in a community-based program or in a district program? And as you should see the screen in front of you. In a few words, share a success you and your district program have had in regard to enrollment. As you're filling that out, Lakeisha, I'm going to ask you to multitask. And then if you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat, Lakeisha Atkins, I hope I'm saying that right. Are you in a community-based program or in a district program? Because I'm loving that you're sharing some of the things that your director does. Yes. And again, being flexible doesn't mean it's not important. It means we have to give grace in the time that we are in, because we certainly don't want our families to say, oh, it's all or nothing. If I can't do all of it, then I'm not going to do any of it. Wonderful. Sharing students between centers. Yes, look at that. You had that waiting list. And so now you're able to, that waiting list lets us know, first of all, the work is important. Families are waiting to get in. And now they're telling us, this is something that I know my child needs. I love this one. They return in person and our families are engaged in our virtual sessions alongside their child. Now, don't you love that? How many of us have said our families are not engaged? They don't come to back to school night. We don't see them unless there's a problem. Look what we are learning about family engagement in our virtual time. Now, I've had some teachers say, yeah, but Dr. Taylor, sometimes I'm looking at the parent giving the child the answer. And that's not real learning. That's true, but it's okay. They're engaged. They are engaging with us. They are engaging with the children, right? And so we can use that as a way to be so grateful to them. Let them know that we hope that this continues. We don't want them to just come back. Okay, here the kids are, and then go off. Hey, Miss Jones, I really love, how you were so active in our virtual classrooms. Let's see how we can talk about what this will look like moving forward. Optional and virtual home visit and assessment. These are such great ideas that you all are sharing. Oh, Leslie Bates, you are down in East St. Louis. That does not surprise me at all, Lakeisha. Yes. Do you know Cindy B about? Yes, Leslie Bates, they're doing some serious work down there. Look at what Elvie is saying, feeding the children. Um, families have lost their jobs. Families have lost income in so many different ways. You've heard on the news about what's happening, with and without, unemployment. Finding a way to say, just come here without judgment. We will feed the children. We will feed the families. That is a great way to connect. I would also submit to you today that the barriers that you faced pre-COVID-19 would be kind of similar to what you're doing now. So especially for early childhood education and care, we have the advantage of having most of our children like 3, 4, and 5. So if you had students that were 3 years old pre-pandemic, and then you might have said, this family really wasn't that engaged with us, that is information and knowledge that you can use. That data, even though it's qualitative, that data is something you can say, okay, this family, there seemed to be some type of barriers for them being engaged and enrolled with us in a typical environment. So you already know going into an atypical environment, that could still be the same. So then what you're doing is thinking of practices. What can we do? Because we already know that particular families struggled with getting their children there anyway. Diaper Brigade, I'm loving all of this. Diaper Brigade with Village, City Partnership for Early Learning and Food Bank, delivery with books from a collection site for recycling. There are so many different good ideas that you all are sharing, and this is really the most unique professional learning that I've ever done for ECPL, and I did it because I wanted you to be able to learn from each other as much as you're learning from me. So for all of those that were saying, gosh, I just wanted some new ideas, I'm hoping that you were able to capture that. Now, as you've been talking about all of these things, I think it is important that I share with you, we do have a special guest with us today. And that special guest is a COVID enrollment and attendance expert. Hold on to your hats, hold on to your seats. Our special guest is, you are looking at a blank slide. That is not a mistake, because guess what? No one is the expert. There are very few people practicing education today who can say, oh yeah, I remember that time when COVID-19 happened, when I just started teaching, and here's how we managed it. None of us are experts. And so since none of us are experts, guess what? We're all the experts. By bringing our ideas and talking like we're doing now, you all are being so candid and sharing, ECPL even sponsoring this. And I must say, Susie, I'm so excited for the attendees, because when we were originally talking about putting this on the roster, I remember Cindy and I saying, will anybody even want to register for this? Like, keep them coming. Keep who coming? No, we don't even know whether we're coming or going. But to have 37 people not only registered, but to attending, I thank you so much for that, because I hope you see how we're helping each other. And I hope that you take from this, when you see we are the experts, for every teacher, director, parent professional, bus attendant. I mean, this has been, Susie, I think this is like the greatest mix of attendees we've ever had. We are all the experts together. And although that, we might be more like the ones on the right, we can't really huddle up for sure like we'd love to and touch each other, but we can each take a corner of our expertise and share it out and come together to make a complete picture, not only for our students and our families, but for our colleagues as well. So since we are the experts, we're going to continue to tell ourselves, just like Dorothy said, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. Our mantra is going to be, there's nothing like evidence-based practices. There's nothing like evidence-based practices, because evidence-based practices stand the test of time. Evidence-based practices can be generalized. So every time you get that bump where you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, use your portfolio of practices, use the standards, use your curriculum, use your professional learning, your in-services, and say, during typical circumstances, my school, my program, I usually fill in the blank. Always take yourself back to a foundation. It's just like, they'll say, like, in case of a tornado, they'll say, go up under a place that's stable. Go in your bathroom. Go in the bathtub. Get up under, go in the basement, right? If you live in a place where they have earthquakes, they'll tell you, get up under the table. When you practice what's supposed to happen when the ground isn't shaking, you have a better idea of what to do when the ground beneath you begins to shake and feel like it's moving beneath you. Don't be afraid to say, typically I would have done that. This is not a typical circumstance, but the practice could still be generalized. I will take this practice and I will retrofit it to make it relevant to this time now. And I'm saying that because so many people have said to me, Dr. Taylor, I hate that we have, especially during March, April, and May, June of 2020, a lot of people were sending home packets of learning and they had worksheets in them. And so many teachers were saying to me, I just feel like everything we fought for to stay away from worksheets, we lost because of COVID-19. No, we haven't lost that. That was a response in the moment. I've had a lot of people say, we've been talking about screen time for years and years and years. Screen time isn't good for children. In this moment, we have to respond to that, but you've got your evidence-based practices. The moment those children are coming back to you face to face, you've got your evidence-based practices that you're going to put in place that will help them get back on track to where we know we like our teaching and learning to be. We talked about this earlier. Now we're looking at what the research says. You all said family engagement. Flamboyant has been talking about this for years. Here is that site that I shared with you. It is really good. And for all of my PFAE programs, utilize your family support specialist. In fact, if you are a PFAE program, please raise your hand. Go to that icon up at the top and raise your hand. And so I am now, see, you didn't know I was going to call you out. Please come to the board and solve this problem, or go to the whiteboard and solve this problem. With the PFAE programs, if you would not mind, please, so that's Lakeisha, Beth Ladd, Michelle Cork, Anna, Kirsten, Katie, Veronica, if you would not mind going into the chat and share some of the ways that your family support specialists have been engaging families and because really the family support specialist is the liaison between the family and the teacher and the administrator and the practice. If you all would not mind sharing some ideas of what have been come forth from your family support specialist in the chat, that would really be appreciated. So Anna is saying through their family support specialist, they're still having their monthly gatherings. And that's, oh my gosh, that I applaud that. And that is so key, because the resources that our families need right now is so important. Beth, having that safe space for them to know what, if you've got personal needs, we're ready to help you with that. Individual check-ins with families, phone, email, text, and in person is kind of still possible. My neighbors and I'm very blessed to live in a neighborhood where we're all really closely knit. Our entire community is. And you know what we did over the summer? We just started a kind of text phone tree that we were all on. And every once in a while, we would just jump on and say, hey, is everybody okay? I'm going to the grocery store. Does anybody need toilet paper? Paper towels. What do you need? How can we help? We literally checked in with each other throughout the summer and even now. And then during the summer, sometimes somebody would just get on and say, I can't take it anymore. Who wants to come outside with me? And we would literally just go outside and stand in our backyards and just talk across the yards with each other. Some, neighbors were 2 or 3 doors down. We would just, hey, how you doing, neighbor? It's good to see you. We gave each other virtual hugs. We let the children virtual play outside. So you can have that face to face, because we do need that in so many different ways, right? Without having the touch experience. So I love that about Katie was saying we're doing check-ins by phone. People may not have Zoom access. Look at what we dealt with tonight. Internet access is sketchy, certainly for rural areas. But believe me, as the chairperson of the attendance commission, we have heard loud and clear from many, and I hate to use this word, quote unquote, affluent areas that have said the internet has been horrible here. So if internet isn't going to be always available to us, most folks have a phone, send a text. Working on family goals throughout the year, keeping that community class dojo app. Yes. Virtual meetings, knock on the door. Katie, you can knock on the door and step back. That's what we did in my neighborhood. If I was going out and one of my neighbors needed something, I'm happy to pick it up for them. Doesn't mean I have to go in the house and sit down on the couch like I normally would have done. You can just knock on the door, text them and say, hey, hey, Shalita, I've got your groceries. I've just put them on the outside of your door. So there are ways that we can still be in communication with each other, keep ourselves safe, and the family safe. I'm loving this. I'm trying to read as many as I can. We use Remind app. And we've certainly learned a lot. If we didn't know WhatsApp, or what is that saying used to be, there's an app for that. If we didn't know it before COVID-19, we know it now. The tech world is kind of saving us in a lot of ways. So I'm reading some of these apps. We use Remind app, Class Dojo app. Group Me is another app that you can use that literally has all of, you can invite as many people as you would like to be on that, and then it literally, instead of texting, you just go on that Group Me. You can set up meetings, you can have conversations, you can do that with your colleagues. That's another app. Drop off resources to parents with no transportation to get to the school for the packets. Devon, that's Devon McCallum. I hope I said that right. That is a wonderful thing to think of. If we're having pickup packets and our families are letting us know, I don't have access to a car, maybe they used the bus before and they were concerned about getting on the bus now. Is it possible that we can deliver the packet to them? if our district allows it, and it's part of our collective bargaining unit. And I have to say, I think everyone, even collective bargaining units, have done as much as they can to try to really help us all live through this moment. Personal Facebook pages. So you may not be able to get Facebook on a laptop, but maybe one can pull it up on their phone. A lot of places started like hotspot areas as well. I love that one. Each of our villages has their own personal Facebook page. Yes, Sarah, I have to tell you, we've certainly seen our data packages increase, and I would like to personally thank you, because certainly that is going above and beyond the call of duty. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I said the class dojo, knock on the door, step back. Thank you all so much for sharing, and I hope that you all are catching this. District outreach. Now I just want to pause here, and I want to remind us that we are all family when it comes to early childhood education and care. And so how are we reaching out to our community-based programs that are around us if we are a school district? Because if you are a PFA program or a PFAE program, one of your compliance checklists is that you have an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, to the community. Have we brought it to life? Are we remembering that those children in those community-based programs will age out and they will come to our districts for kindergarten most likely? Are we trying to take our MOUs and bringing them to life so that information is being shared as much as possible? And then vice versa. Who was open when we had to determine essential? A lot of daycare or childcare programs were open. Have we reached out to our childcare colleagues and say, how did you handle the cleanliness factor? How did you handle centers, in your building? How did you handle families? Maybe did you let them come in when they were dropping their children off? Did you have a station where they you met them outside? We can learn from each other. Let's let those MOUs, those memorandums of understanding, instead of them just being a checklist, we did it, okay, it's in the binder. When we get monitored, we'll be able to show it to them. Let's see what we can do to bring them to life. Here is another thing that we can think of as far as a tiered understanding about attendance. And this one literally takes what is normally, we would say, would be a multi-tiered system of support tier, where you see that triangle, you have this big tier at the bottom. Here for attendance, they flipped it and literally said what you want on the top to be thinking about is all of your preventive, low-cost, universal practices. So thinking about the school climate, thinking about positive conversations with children and with families. Those are all of the things that you do so that you have a very broad universal practice. And then slowly but surely, you think about what happens when families are not engaging. Here's another best practice question. How many of you typically celebrated or did some type of instructional activity around the 100th day of school? And this is just a yes or no. You can jump in the chat. I'm sorry, in the poll. Oh, wow, this is very interesting. I thought this would be almost at 100%, but it's almost looking pretty even. Some were celebrating the 100th day or doing some type of curriculum or activity around the 100th day of school. Some were not. So for those of you who were, here's your on-site assignment. Why did you create an activity around the 100th day of school? Go ahead and put that in the chat for those of you that said yes. And I see many of you are typing, so thank you for that. It's a great milestone for attendance. Brooke, absolutely. It's a real great milestone for attendance. It's kind of that way of saying, we're doing it, we're doing it. You know, like you see on TV where they say, oh, this series, they're celebrating their 100th episode. That's their way of saying, look at this, we haven't got canceled just yet. School celebration for grades pre-K to 2. Look at how Dana, they not only celebrated it at the pre-K level, really used it as a way to connect that pre-K to second grade, which is huge because that's part of that pre-K to kindergarten transition. If you think about, our school usually does a celebration that's geared more K through 8. So now, LaMonica, your charge I'm going to give to you would be to think about how you might take something that is K and make it developmentally appropriate for pre-K. And if you started that first day, no matter what it looks like, right? Especially in this time that we're in now, because remember that enrollment, attendance only matters if you get them enrolled. Then once they're enrolled, every single thing that we're doing is almost like our billboard to say, keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. So that's the, from enrollment to attendance. Sometimes we can have this great enrollment. Everybody's talking about the first day of school, and then over time, and this is in typical situations for sure, we get closer to winter break, it declines. And by spring break, you can forget the whole thing. People will start checking out, not just the students, but sometimes educators as well. What are we going to do that lets them know that we're still excited about school? So these 100th day celebrations, the whole idea behind them is to it's kind of like when you're dating and you say, you know what, I'm going to put the spark back in this relationship. Let's celebrate this milestone. Let's celebrate something. It's kind of the way of saying, how can we fall in love again with what we're doing? So that 100th day is kind of this default celebration that began in education. But if you think about it, it can help us, especially in these times that we are in now. So with that being said, I would like to ask us some questions. What can I do? What should I do to make the 100th day as important or exciting during this unique time of learning that we are in? Families are tired. We are tired. And quite literally, last week, most of us were just coming back from winter break. And I tell you, by Wednesday, the meetings I was in, people were telling me, Dr. Taylor, help me, please help me. We've just got back to school, and I'm already saying, when is the King holiday? The times that we are in cause us to be tired or frustrated or kind of feeling like, when is this all going to be over? When normally we would not be. So what can we do? What should we do? What are we willing to do now? Especially if you're thinking about, well, I'm completely virtual. What could I do? Is there something that can be done for the 100th day of school during this unique time? Can we have a classroom Zoom celebration for those of you that said, yeah, but we're 100% virtual? And there are some districts that have said, hey, they've given families the choice. Do you want to come back, have your child back in the building, or do you want to keep your child at home? And so for those teachers, they've got some kids in the building, some of their students in the building, and some of them are still coming to you through your laptop or your tablet. There you go. Schedule a virtual field trip. And there have been many to their kudos to them, I would say, hats off to many museums that have allowed for free virtual trips. The Chicago Children's Museum has been doing a lot of them. So maybe we can take a virtual field trip. Maybe we can just have a virtual party. Keeping in mind, we don't want to make our families feel pressured, like go out and get all of these things because we're going to have a 100th day party. But you can, if you talk to them about it enough in advance, we can work with our family members so that they are prepared to have their child join. Guest virtual visitors, love that. Can you imagine if you say, oh, the principal or the superintendent, or, there's a lot of ways that you can have that virtual visitor. Maybe a special, library, our folks that used to come into our buildings and do special readings. They are hankering. Yeah, pajama day. I love that. People are hankering to be able to support us and help us. Put the word out. Do it out early in enough time so that whatever the idea is, it can be vetted, of course, for what your district will approve. But, what about that? Hey, Miss Antoinette's going to come in her appropriate pajama day. Let me just put that out there. Not that this group needs that, but we'll just say it anyway. But guest virtual visitors, love that one, Michelle. The Chicago Children's Museum, please check them out if you haven't done so already. They have been trying to do a lot of virtual events, and many of them you don't have to be a member to come to. They have been doing them free. So those are the type of things that we want to do for the 100th day. And to be honest, even the 101st day, we might have to do a couple of these, hey, we're making it, hey, we're doing it celebrations throughout the rest of this year. Because I'm calling this a temporary normal. In my mind, I have not given in to the fact of calling it the new normal. So in this temporary normal, we might have to do a temporary or flexible thing. So maybe we do the 100th day and then we say, you know what, scholars, this was so exciting. I want to let you know we're going to do 130th day. Whatever it is that we can do to let them know that it's important to us and we value them coming. And then I would like to say, here it is. We need the 101st day to be just as important as that first day. So start thinking and planning now. Because if enrollment has been shaky now, we don't want to lose our early learners after spring break. And now, why am I mentioning spring break? Because after spring break, if your student is in a household where there is a senior in high school, if you've ever had a child that graduated high school, a niece, a nephew, you know that from spring break to graduation, it is crunch time. They're getting in their deposits, making their decisions about where they're going to be going to school, financial aid packages, lots of things. May 1 is like a due day, a signing day, so to speak. All those decisions have to be made. So We want to think about this now. We want to talk about it now so that our families, we're telling them, after spring break, we are going to do X, Y, Z. Have a show and love that one, Kimberly. Have a show and tell day. Set the parameters, right? Remember evidence-based practices. When you had a show and tell day, when children were in your building before COVID-19, there were guidelines. This is an appropriate thing for you to show, and this is an appropriate way for you to tell. Do that same thing now, virtually, especially if you have your hybrid. I know some districts are like some students are in the buildings on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then others are in the building on Tuesdays and Thursdays so that they have more room to spread out. Think of those type of things, but think about them and talk about them now. Talk with your colleagues, determine what you might want to do, and start having that post-spring break conversation now. Because I'm telling you, when those families start thinking about those high school graduations, 8th grade, children that are going from 8th grade into high school in this time of COVID-19, there's just a lot that families are dealing with that we definitely want to help them keep early childhood education and care at the forefront of their thinking. Pause. I said that we weren't gonna go through a break. We're gonna try to give you your time back at the end of our time together rather than taking a break. If you have any pressing questions, thoughts, comments, go ahead and put them in the chat. I started to say come off Zoom, so that lets you know where I was about to say, feel free to, come off Zoom and share. We can't do that through Adobe, but put it in the chat and I will try to read them and see if there's anything that I can answer specifically, or if it was something that you saw one of your colleagues said, we can try to address it. And while you all are thinking and typing, I will say a lot of colleges that, to Sarah's point about the U of I students are going to get a week of spring break, I'm hearing that a lot of universities that do have on campus, instead of having a spring break, they're going to go straight through, kind of like we did tonight. They're going to go straight through, but end the year earlier. So that way they don't have to have that concern about, well, if the college students go home for spring break, then you have to have that whole worry about, traveling COVID-19, so to speak. So those children are going to, those students are just going to come home at the end of an early school year instead of for spring break. I think that's what you were bringing up, Sarah. Yes, Class Dojo, remind me, group me. Another one is WhatsApp. It's literally, I'm going to see if I can get it in our box. WhatsApp is another one that people can use to kind of just create a phone tree, to be, so to speak. I'm really telling my age there, phone tree. Class tag, thank you, LaMonica. And these are all apps that whether you have an Android or an Apple phone, that you would be able to download. Trying to just see, did I miss any questions? I really thank you all so much for sharing. Again, this is the most unique professional learning opportunity I've ever done with ECPL, because I knew that we were going to have such a differentiated amount of the way teaching and learning is happening right now. There is just no way to create one, just do this type of slide deck. So I built it in so that we could be learning from each other. And I just appreciate you all so much for sharing. The only pressing question I saw was the one about trainings on what to do if there is civil unrest. And again, that would have to be referred back to your district. Many districts, and I hate that my mouth even has to say this, had begun those emergency drills, those lockdown drills. And I dare say those will probably be the same type of processes your building will follow in the case of civil unrest. God forbid that even happens, but such as it is, this is what we must say now. All right, it's 5:24. I am going to say thank you all so much for your time. So I can hand this back off to Susie and she can give you your final housekeeping notes. I want to say to you, so many of us were just hanging on by the hair of our chinny chin chin, so to speak, and our nails to get through 2020. We were so looking to 2021. 2021 has given us already some bumps in the road, but I want to say, oh, de nada, Teresa, de nada, de nada. I want to still say to you, it is my prayer that you have a blessed, healthy, and prosperous 2021 personally. You have a blessed, healthy, and prosperous 2021 professionally. I want to, before I close, say to you, life without rest is not sustainable. And if life without rest is not sustainable, teaching without rest is not sustainable, parenting without rest is not sustainable. Whenever you can, however you can, take a moment to show yourself grace, rest, disconnect, give yourself time to recharge. Hope I'll see you at some of the upcoming trainings. I think we've got a couple of more that we're doing, Susie, before this school year ends. And if not, thank you so much for your time. I'll turn you over to Susie.